Hello, everyone. So, we're going to start with the client centered therapy. So, this client centered therapy, the practice of this was actually started by Carl Rogers. So, Rogers was of the belief that, the core of one's being can be defined by a person's freedom, by a person's choice. So, he really laid a lot of emphasis on the concept of self. And this therapy definitely provides us with a very, very warm relationship. And it is because of this warmth that the client receives from the therapist that he can actually once again reconnect with all his feelings that have just been fallen apart, all the disintegrated feelings. And some of the attributes of the therapist here is, of course, number one, that he shows great empathy. So, empathy is when you can really understand the feelings, the experiences of your client. Understand with an intent as if they were your own experiences, they were your own emotions and feelings. With that intent, you're really trying to feel and understand the pain of another person. Of course, the therapist is very warm. The therapist will continue to exhibit, the unconditional positive regard. So, unconditional positive regard is actually an attitude where there's going to be a lot of acceptance, where there's going to be a lot of respect, you know, of course, on the part of the therapist. And no matter whatever the client will continue to maybe say or do, but still, the therapist will continue to maintain the respect, will continue to show acceptance, to his own client. So, yes, of course, therapist is going to exhibit this very, very important process, or so to say, a very, very important spirit of unconditional positive regard, which is an attitude actually, which he's going to be exhibiting. And there is going to be total acceptance, coming from the therapist, for the client. And empathy, of course, where you are in a way trying to really understand the pain, trying to really connect with the feelings and the pain of the person, is going to set in a lot of emotional resonance. So, what is this emotional resonance? So, because of emotional resonance, the client's pain will be felt, by the therapist, where the therapist can really feel the pain of the client. So that kind of a emotional resonance will be set up, of course, because the client is really pouring his heart out in front of the therapist. And so unconditional positive regard is going to really help the therapist, be able to exhibit a lot of positive warmth, and it does not really matter what the client is going to reveal, or what the client is going to say, or what is the client going to do. It does not matter. It's not going to affect, this unconditional positive regard attitude of the therapist. He will not get affected by the sayings or the actions or the harsh words or the revelations of the client, but he will continue to maintain that respect, that acceptance towards his own client, that warmth towards his own client. He's not going to judge his client, with a very, very non judgmental attitude. He's going to proceed further in the therapy. So now this kind of warmth, which is so unconditional, where there are no conditions, that only if you talk properly to me, only if you share good things with me, I'm going to show you love and affection and warmth. No, it's absolutely very, very unconditional, where you are continuing to respect, where you're continuing to accept, and not being judgmental towards your client. This kind of warmth that is coming, very, very unconditional warmth that is coming, is going to ensure that the client will definitely feel very, very secured. The client will be able to trust the therapist, and the client, of course, will be able to really, explore his own feelings, because he's feeling that sense of security. He's able to feel the trust, he is able to form that trust on the therapist. So he will get a chance to really, really explore his own feelings, her own feelings, and then comes the process of reflection, you know now the therapist is going to just simply reflect the feelings of the client, and that is again being done in a very, very non-judgmental manner. So what happens in reflection? You are trying to rephrase the statements which have been said by the client. Now the rephrasing of statements is done because you need a simple clarification. You're looking forward, you're seeking simple clarifications to probably enhance the meaning of the client's statements. So you are in a way trying to rephrase, probably maybe say the things which the client has already said to you. So the therapist is trying to rephrase and share it with the client again, because he wants to get a simpler or better meaning of it, and to really be able to enhance and to kind of understand the meaning of the statements made by client in a much better and profound way. So this rephrasing of statements, it begins, and it's done in a very, very non-judgmental manner, and this process is called a reflection. you know and so of course then this is going to really help the client to become very, very integrated. So of course when once the reflection process is done, then the client will become a more integrated person. So of course integrated person is a person who's very unified, you know unified, so to say, one with himself, with himself or herself at all levels. So we know that as per the humanistic approach, where Rogers he's talked about achieving the ideal self, or the, so to say, the desired self which everybody wants to achieve. So once this process of reflection is done, once the client is towards becoming an integrated person, so there'll be a very, very low discrepancy. There'll be a very low, so to say, difference, left between the present self and, so to say, the desired self. So that means now the client is very close towards achieving, the so called ideal or the desired self. So there is a very, very low discrepancy or low difference between the present self and the desired self. So he's almost towards achieving that. So he's becoming a complete person, he's becoming a whole person, an integrated individual. And all of this has been possible because of the process of reflection, where of course he was able to once again revisit all the statements that he shared, of course. And then when we talk about what happens after that, so then definitely the person will see a lot of differences, especially when we talk about personal relationships. They will start improving because there'll be adjustments being made by the client. So when you tend to make adjustments, that's also because you have really been able to work on your own self, and you tend to make adjustments, and because of that, definitely the relationships become better. There are lesser fights, there's better understanding, there's more harmony, there's greater unity, so therefore lesser of relationship issues, rather better relationships. And of course the therapy is going to really, really help the client to become or to achieve his real self, and so in all of this, of course, the client is being facilitated by the therapist, where the therapist is acting as a guide, as a facilitator mainly. And it's in the hands of, once again, the client, how he wants to take it, how he wants to mold it, So we all know that we do have so much potential in us. It's all about actualizing that potential within each one of us. So of course that is how you can achieve the ideal self, or you can really be able to meet with the desired self. So we do have that present in each one of us, and that is what this client centered therapy is helping us to achieve. So yes, you come in terms with your own real self, the potential self. So this is what the client centered therapy is helping you to do. And behind the scenes, we have the therapist who's guiding you, who's acting as a facilitator, who's helping in the process of reflection. But ultimately it's the client who is able to revisit whatever he's shared, whatever statements he's made, and to really be able to reflect and understand, what is it that I really need to work on? What is it that I really need to change? And that is how this entire therapy works. But a lot has been put in because of the therapist, continuing to maintain the unconditional positive regard, being warm, being empathetic. So this actually gives a lot of encouragement, you know to the client. So this was all about the client centered therapy. Thank you so much.